And global best practice dictate that it's the donors that give the NGOs the funds to be able to secure these assets, and therefore that these assets should be returned to the donors rather than the federal government of Nigeria. And one of the other very kind of controversial issues that came up was Clause 11, Paragraph 1, which was about the renewal of registration for the NGOs. Now, if the NGO Regulatory Commission is established, if this bill is passed into law, then it will have the sole unquestioned authority to close down any NGO that it says is not in the national interest. Now, we know not in the national interest is pretty vague language,
sure,
particularly in a heavily politicized atmosphere. And I want to ask you, if they have the power to do that, and if they have the power to dictate that NGOs must be re-registered every 2 years, then that indicates that if certain NGOs aren't playing ball, potentially, they could be closed down. What do you say to people who are worried about that right now?
Well, I must tell you that as a person, I believe that what can be used can be abused. And so there are clauses that, if allowed to remain, if at all, we are moving on with it, such clauses can be abused. This is one of them. It is one of them that anybody can abuse in future and use that to deregister CSOs or NGOs that are considered not to be, maybe of good behavior or whatever. So it is of concern to everybody. But measures can be taken if at all, that kind of clause is going to stay, or if the bill itself is, going beyond this level. But as it stands now, we are as concerned as you are in respect of that particular clause.
What about the commission, which is another area that, quite a number of the CSOs have issues with? You listened to one of the gentlemen give testimony of how he was able to bring in vaccines to combat meningitis, and he imagined that if there was a commission, the chances are high that he might not have been able to bring them in as swiftly as he did, considering the fact that in many instances government agencies are not as efficient as they ought to be. What are the reservations? I mean, upon hearing their presentations, did you also share their reservations?
That particular comment is neither here nor there. But I'm concerned about, the view of a lot of people who think that a commission is not necessary. They are rather of the view that we should strengthen existing agencies. That was the predominant opinion,
yes,
that was expressed on the floor of the public hearing yesterday. But with respect to the point you're making, the ability of a donor to respond to a situation of emergency of that kind will not be inhibited by the existence of a commission if that commission is efficient. Presently, I'm not sure that the Ministry of Budget and National Planning has stopped any organization from delivering. So the commission will not even be different from that. You understand me? What is important is that whoever is responsible, be it the ministry, be it EFCC, be it ICPC or CAC or KUMUS, as whatever the name is, that organization should be efficient, right? And the people, it should be populated by people who are competent and understand what their responsibility is.
Honorable member, you know as well as we do that we have a lot of laws that have great intentions, but we know that the peculiarities of our environment is that these things are not implemented the way that they were originally intended.
Sure.
And one of the very kind of interesting things in this bill is that when you've kind of built in this peer review mechanism that you're calling the Nigerian National Council on Voluntary Agencies,
sure,
VCA. And I want to ask about that because it stipulates that the first 100 NGOs that are incorporated after this bill comes into law will form the body that will build the code of conduct. Now that leaves open the possibility that an NGO that is brand new with no experience will be essentially building the code of conduct for NGOs that have been around for decades. What are your thoughts about that, and what would you say to those that are worried that, you know, kind of the regulation of the NGOs will not be in good hands?
So, Honourable, I'm going to ask you to please hold the question in your hand, and you'll have a chance to answer after this break. Please stay with us.